Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission of this interim. My name is Patrick Guinan. I'm the committee policy analyst. And because we do not have a chair just yet, I'm going to start the meeting off. So I'd like to welcome everyone in Las Vegas and here in Carson City and anyone who's watching online. The first order of business today is to take roll, so I'm going to do that right now by voice. Please voice vote. Let me know that you're here. Senator Daly?
Here.
Senator Hansen?
Here.
Senator Lang?
Here.
Assemblywoman Backus?
Present.
Assemblywoman Marzola?
Present.
And Assemblyman O'Neill?
Here.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our next order of business, we have item 2, which is public comment. And I would like to just run through a few notes on public comment. Public testimony under this item can be presented in person or by phone or by written comment. Because of time considerations, we limit public comment to no more than 2 minutes per person. You can have your comments added to the meeting record by submitting them in writing. In lieu of testifying, all the information on how to do that is listed on the agenda. If you're going to call in today, you can call 888-475-4499. And when you're prompted, please enter the meeting ID 814-9521-0240 and then press the pound key and just follow the instructions from there. So with that, is there any public comment here in Carson City? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas? Not seeing any there. Broadcast, can you let us know if there's anyone on the line to make public comment, please?
Your public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. In that case, we will close public comment and move on to agenda item 3. That would be the election of the chair and vice chair. I'm going to call for a motion from one of the members for the election of the chair, and then once we have the chair, I will pass the responsibilities over to that chair to do the vice chair vote. So do I hear a motion for the election of the chair?
Yes, Senator Lang, I move that we elect Senator Skip Daly as the chair of the Sunset Subcommittee.
Okay, I have a motion.
And
from-
Assemblywoman,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to skip ahead. I apologize. Assemblywoman Backus, I'll second that motion.
We have a first and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Can we have a voice vote for electing Senator Daly as chair? I'll just go through alphabetically. Senator Daly?
Aye.
Senator Hansen?
Aye.
Senator Lang? Senator Lang?
Aye.
Assemblywoman Backus?
Aye.
Assemblywoman Marzola?
Aye.
And Assemblyman O'Neill.
Oh, what the heck? Aye.
All right, thank you, members. The vote to elect Senator Daly chair is unanimous. Thank you all. I'll turn the microphone over to the new chair, and congratulations, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your support. So at this time, we will take nomination for vice chair. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Chair. I move that we elect Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola as vice chair.
Assemblywoman Backus seconds that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So we'll proceed to taking a vote on electing Elaine Marzola, Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola, as vice chair. Any questions on the motion? Being none, do we need to do the votes for it, or we can just have people say aye? Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is unanimous. So thank you. With that, congratulations to our vice chair, which then will now go to agenda item 4, which is opening remarks. So good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the first meeting of the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission. As you know, we're a subcommittee to the commission, appointed by the commission. So at the end, we make a report back to the commission, and they'll adopt part or all or none of our recommendations. So I know we have 3 members that are on the Legislative Commission that are also on this committee, so hopefully we'll fare pretty well when we get to that point. So I'd like to take a few minutes at this time for the members to introduce themselves. So please include your district, where you represent, as well as your goals on the subcommittee if you've served on it before. So let's begin with our vice chair, Assemblywoman Marzola.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I am Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola, representing Assembly District 21. This will be my second time serving in this committee. It's a great committee. We get to review a lot of boards, see what has been going on or what hasn't been going on, and so I'm very excited to continue that work, and I am glad to be here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Hansen?
Thanks and congratulations, Mr. Chair. This is my first time on the subcommittee, although I was actually involved very heavily back in the 2013 session when this was created. At the time, we were going to make it a full standing committee with the idea that in a year or two they could review all, I think it was 285 agencies and boards at that time. Anyway, Debbie Smith was involved at that time. She didn't like that idea, so we ended up doing the subcommittee, and then they picked 2 or 3 per year, and at that time Irene Bustamante-Adams was the chair. So I'm getting old talking about the past, but anyway, it's a great idea. I represent District 14, which is 34,000 square miles of mainly northern Nevada. So I'm looking forward to getting a chance to review some of these boards and see if we can clean up some of that.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Roberta Lang, and I represent Senate District 7, which means nothing to any of you except that I can tell you it's by UNLV, and that'll give you a little bit of proximity. This is my second session serving on the board. I'm really enjoy this board a lot because it gives us an opportunity to look at what's happening and make changes and make it better. And so I look forward to serving with this committee and all that we can accomplish.
Thank you, Senator. Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time. I'm Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, Assembly District 40, also known as the Capital District. Includes Carson City, all of Story County, and the eastern side of Washoe County up to the City of Sparks limits. This is my first time serving on this board. I'm looking forward to it greatly. I actually lobbied to be appointed because I'd like to see some of these excessive boards that we have be limited and reduced their size of government. So thank you, Chair, for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And last, but, next to last, I'll go last, but Assemblywoman Bacchus.
Thank you so much, Chair, and I echo the sentiments. Congratulations to Chair Daly as well as Vice Chair Marzola. My name is Shay Bacchus. I'm the Assemblywoman representing Assembly District 37, which is best for the northwest part of Las Vegas. And I'm really excited. This is my first time serving on the Sunset Committee. I do serve on LegCom, but I'm looking forward to hearing from those boards that don't meet and or are not really following what the legislative intent was in setting up those boards. And so if they're not doing it, it's not necessary. I look forward to making recommendations to the legislature next year or how we can improve the boards and help them out.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And so I'll go next. My name is Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13, which is Central Sparks, Central Reno, all within Washoe County in northern Nevada. And I've served on this committee. This will be my third time, twice when I was in the Assembly, first time in the Senate. Obviously, it's my first interim in the Senate. So when we look at this and some of the things we want to do, and I don't want to steal too much of our policy analysts' remarks, but the commission came out of recommendations from the SAVES Commission to review government and various things. And one of the focuses on, and we'll see this a little bit later in our agenda, on one thing we want to possibly change on the form we send out. The goal was to try to find efficiencies, see if there are redundancies, see if we can consolidate some of this stuff into, try to save the state money. As you know, I don't want to save money on the backs of any state employees. Mainly, I'm just talking about if there's redundancies and overlap, maybe we can identify those and make some consolidations. I know I've seen this committee do similar things in the past, so we'll be looking for that. A couple of things for anybody that may come and talk to us on this. If somebody has the floor and they're asking questions, you can go direct back to the member. You don't have to go through the chair. I think it's a little more efficient that way. We're trying to build efficiency. And then if you are recognized and have questions, you're asking questions and you have a follow-up within reason, feel free to take that follow-up. You don't have to always come back and go from that. If you run too far, then we'll bring it back in and maybe come back to you after other people have had a chance. So those are just some of the things that I like to or look at and how we would run things. So I won't go too much further, and I'll let our policy analyst, Patrick Guinan, before I go there, we should introduce the staff. So we have LCB staff, Patrick Guinan is our policy analyst for the subcommittee, Sarah DeLapp and Jessica Doomer will be our legal counsel, and Maria Vasquez is the subcommittee secretary. So as you guys know, staff makes us all look good. We wouldn't be able to function nearly as well without them, so we appreciate all that you guys do for us in the interim. Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item 5, which is the overview, membership, statutory duties, recent recommendations, sunset subcommittee, et cetera. And I'm hoping that Patrick is going to remind everybody that if we get the names and appointments, this committee is actually the 6 voting members we have here today, plus 3 people appointed by the governor, but that are non-voting, but oftentimes their insights can be helpful. So with that, you're up.
Thanks, Chair Daly, and again, congratulations to you on being chair and to Assemblywoman Marzola as vice chair. We're at agenda item 5 now. I'm just going to go very quickly through some background information that I think is relevant to the committee, maybe going forward. So I'll try to not repeat what's already been said too often. But yeah, this committee was what came out of a recommendation from former Governor Gibbons' SAGE Commission, which was the Spending and Government Efficiency Commission. That was in 2008. And one of the recommendations, recommendation 17, was to create this committee. It was established in 2011 by Senate Bill 251. It was supported by both parties, received bipartisan support. And just by way of information there, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures, there are about 37 other states that have similar bodies to this. So it's a popular idea. Each interim, at the end of the interim, the committee staff prepares a final report summarizing meetings and actions of the subcommittee, and that's available online to review if you'd like to look at the work of the committee in the past. I'll be talking about some of what happened last interim specifically right now. I'm going to first talk about the committee brief, which is available online. You can look there at the current committee's page for that. The composition of this committee is 6 legislative members appointed by legislative leadership. And as the chair just mentioned, there are 3 additional non-voting members that are appointed by the governor or recommended by the governor, and appointed by the chair of the Legislative Commission. When we have been in contact with the governor's office, and we haven't gotten that list of nominations yet, but we hope to see that in the near future. Importantly, the subcommittee's primary duties, according to statute, are to first conduct a review of all boards, commissions, and similar entities in Nevada which are created by statute and determine whether each entity should be continued, modified, consolidated with another entity, or terminated. Secondly, to recommend improvements to the entities that are to be continued, modified, or consolidated. And third, to determine whether any tax exemptions, abatements, or money set aside for an entity should be continued, modified, or terminated. And pursuant to statute, the relevant statute is 232B.220. The subcommittee must review at least 10 boards each interim. There is no upper limit on that number, but it's a minimum of 10. In addition, the subcommittee is required to review certain information and determine whether restrictions based on the criminal history of an applicant for a practice authorization issued by a regulatory body are appropriate. The subcommittee has to include any suggestions for modification, continuation, or removal of such restrictions in its recommendations for the appropriate legislative action to the commission. And I would just note briefly here that those bodies that the committee is asked to review based on criminal history, there is no mention in statute of how many bodies this subcommittee needs to look at or how often they need to be looked at. So that's entirely up to the subcommittee. The remainder of the brief contains information on which entities the subcommittee reviewed last interim, on recommendations that came out of those reviews, and it lists our upcoming meeting dates, which have all been set. So if anyone has problems with those meeting dates or needs to change them, please let us know. Obviously, things happen, so if we need to change them, the sooner we know, the better. And for the members of the public or anyone else looking, our full interim schedule is listed. Excuse me. It is important to note that unlike most interim committees, the Sunset Subcommittee does not have a specified allotment of bill draft requests to use. Instead, subsection 3 of 232B.250 requires the Sunset Subcommittee to submit these recommendations on or before June 30th to the Legislative Commission, which may then request one or more bill drafts on behalf of this subcommittee, but is not required to do so. Over the last several interims, bills related to the subcommittee's work have been requested as personal BDRs by individual members of the subcommittee on occasion, and that remains an option that members may wish to pursue depending on what the commission does or what the subcommittee does. Next, I'm going to move to the status of recommendations of the previous subcommittee. The second document that I would direct the members' attention to is item 5C in the agenda, and that's called the final status of recommendations of the subcommittee from the previous interim. That's worthy of your review. I'm not going to go through that entire document unless there are specific questions, but I do want to point out two pieces of legislation that were requested by this body and approved by the commission for last session. The first is Assembly Concurrent Resolution 3, and those are recommendations 8 and 9 in the status of recommendations that I just mentioned. That would have required a study of the Taxi Cab Authority and the Transportation Services Authority to be conducted by the Joint Interim Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, but that bill made it out of the Assembly and did not come out of the Senate, so that study is not being conducted. That's just something for the committee's consideration. The second is Senate Bill 210, which contains recommendations 16 through 19 in that list of recommendations that I mentioned. That bill proposed several changes to both boards and commissions generally, as well as to the process for naming the chair and the vice chair of this subcommittee. Governor Lombardo vetoed SB 210, but I would note that in his veto message, which is Exhibit 5E in your packet, he mentioned only one of the four main elements of the bill in his veto message, and so the committee may wish to review that bill and see if there's anything in it that the committee would like to pursue again this time around. One final note on the previous interim, the subcommittee also requested updates on the activities of the State Historical Records Advisory Board regarding vacancies on the board, and from the Board of Homeopathic Medical Examiners concerning that board's composition, licensing, operations, and efforts to resolve ongoing debt owed to the Office of the Attorney General. The State Historical Records Advisory Board responded by letter, which is Exhibit 5D, to the subcommittee's request, and reported that they have addressed the subcommittee's concerns and everything is working well there. Their letter is included, as I mentioned. At this point, we have not yet received a response from the Homeopathic Medical Examiners Board. The letter that the subcommittee sent out at the end of last interim is also included as an exhibit just for the committee's review. So those are just the issues that the committee may wish to go back and take a closer look at from last interim. And if there are any pieces of information or research that the members would like to have done based on those, I'd be more than happy to provide that. I would also just note that for instance, the Taxi Cab Authority and the Transportation Services Authority, we have their presentations and their discussions all online at the Sunset Subcommittee webpage from last interim, and I will be happy to provide those exhibits and those documents to anyone who'd like to look at them. So moving on now, I just want to mention a couple of other things. Both the Legislative Auditor and the Division of Internal Audits in the Governor's Finance Office typically present to this committee concerning reviews that they've done of various boards and other bodies for financial matters and other accounting or matters. And so we will expect to hear from those folks going forward. I believe that we're going to hear from the Legislative Auditor in February, and we will work out a time for the Governor's Office to join us as well. There is no specific number of meetings budgeted for the Sunset Subcommittee. As I mentioned before, though, we are required to complete our work and report to the Commission by June 30th. At this point, our last meeting is scheduled for June 14th, I believe. But the number of meetings that are held by this subcommittee and the frequency are entirely up to the chair and the subcommittee. So that's just a brief overview of the committee since its creation. I think that the subcommittee is about halfway through the list of boards and commissions that it's able to review. Some of these boards were created in the late 1800s. They may not have met for quite some time. Others are busy and working constantly. So as the chair mentioned, the point of this subcommittee is to take the opportunity to let these folks come before this subcommittee and make requests for revisions to the statutes that might make their operations more efficient. I think efficiency was the number one key that the chair just mentioned. And finally, I would just point out that NRS provides that it is the burden of the board or commission to prove that there is a public need for its continued existence. And that's all I have, Chair, on agenda item 5.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for your analysis. Does anyone have any questions for our policy analyst as right now? I'm not seeing any. No, not up here. So just a couple of comments on that. I'm hoping next meeting we can go ahead and put on the agenda item to review some of those outstanding things on the veto message and the various things, so then we can maybe follow up on a couple of those items as well. I'm hoping today to put, when we get to it, at least 8 items on the agenda for review, and we'll try to, gives us a little flexibility. I was talking with staff, because some people may take more than the time it takes to fill out the questionnaire. If you've looked at it, it's quite extensive. We don't expect, all of the agencies, if you're listening, we don't expect one sentence or short little answers. We like to have the information be thorough and complete. If you don't do it that way, we're probably going to call you out on it. At least I will. And then, so when I was looking at it, and we'll keep in mind on this, I think the subcommittee looked at 16 agencies or people last time. Hopefully we'll do at least that many, but it tends to, it's a long meeting, a lot of reading. You need to read the statute that's involved. Hopefully those agencies are going to come with some recommendations, then we have to consider it all. I know in the past they've done work sessions every meeting. We don't necessarily have to do that, but if there's some that are easy, we'll do that. So we'll have an agenda item on there for a possible work session. But we could run some over to the next one, but we will be finished by the deadline or else, right? When I was looking at it, I tried to pick ones that had not been reviewed before, so we'll keep that in mind. If somebody really has one that they want to be looked at, let us know, and we'll do everything we can to get it on there. People that haven't met for some time, we're going to do, but there is a limit on the number that we can do. We can obviously put some on the agenda or into review or put them on our list, and we may or may not have time to get to them, so it's not a limit of 10 or a limit of even 16. We could attempt to do more, but time may become a factor. So those are the only things that I have right now. So let's go ahead and move on to agenda item 6, which is the selection of boards, commissions, similar entities for review for the 2023-24. And I know Mr. Guinan has, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call you Patrick, should I? I should say Mr. Guinan.
Either way's fine.
My bad. We'll have some information on what's been submitted by some of the members, so.
All right, thanks, Chair. So, yeah, we asked the members to come today with a few selections for boards or commissions or other entities that they would like to look at, and we have a partial list, and I'm going to leave it to the Chair to decide how to go through that with each member, but I will talk a little bit about where we are at this point. First of all, there are two documents that are helpful for this part of the meeting. This is probably the most straightforward part of the agenda, but it's also perhaps the most important item that we'll address today, and that's choosing some boards and commissions to get started with. So the two documents that we have, the first exhibit is a master list of all the state boards and commissions and similar entities from which this body should choose. That's a very large list, and I would just point out that boards and other bodies that have been looked at before are shaded in gray on that list, and ones that were looked at last interim specifically are shaded in orange just to help with identifying what to look at. And the second document is the list of the regulatory bodies that are required to be reviewed under NRS 232B.237. And those are the entities whose licensing requirements include restrictions based on the criminal history of an applicant. And to the Chair's point that he made a minute ago, there's also a list of bodies that were reviewed, a separate list of bodies that were reviewed last interim, and I think that there were 16 boards and commissions, and then this subcommittee added 2 later on, specifically for the 232B.237 question about criminal history checks. So it ended up being a total of 18, I believe, that were reviewed last time around. And so now, Chair, do you want me to go through the list that I have to start with of boards that I've received, or do you want to ask the members to go through each one individually? How would you like to proceed?
Well, I know of the list, I think Assemblywoman Backus, Assemblyman O'Neill, and myself submitted a list. I know there's 2 or 3 or maybe 4 that are on that list that were on either 2 or all 3 of the list, so I think we could start with those. The only one for sure that I want to make sure is on the list that has been reviewed before, it's different, but I have my reason, is the Court Reporters Board. I do want to hear from them. And then, so let's start with those that are matching, and then if people have a favorite or one that they'd really like, we'll take a look at it. We're going to try to get 6 approved today, and then we'll refine everybody's list for the next agenda, and staff or myself or somebody will reach out. But so let's try that and give everybody an opportunity for your discussion on which boards you'd like to see reviewed. Because I know Assemblyman O'Neill had one with like 25, a list of 25, and I say, well, you know, I said, you know, narrow it down, pick your favorites, right? So that's, I think, is that good enough direction for you?
Yeah, sure, Chair, that's fine. So how about, I'll go through this first list, and I don't know, we'll do the lists that I have here that are the combined list of yours and Assemblywoman Backus's, and then we can see where we get from there, and then we can move on to the other members if they have more to add. I believe that the other members also have some that they might just want to speak to on the record. So from Assemblywoman Backus, and Assemblywoman, please interrupt me or feel free to let me know if you want to say anything about this. Senator Backus has asked to look at the Graduate Medical Education Board, the State 4-H Camp Advisory Council, the Advisory Committee on Medicaid Innovation, and the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority. So those are the 4 from Assemblywoman Backus, and the High-Speed Rail Authority is one that the chair has also mentioned wanting to look at. So I think we could start with those as being well, the High-Speed Rail Authority, we've got two people who already want to look at it, and we also have the court reporters that the chair wants to look at. So unless anyone has objections, I think those two are probably set to go. Okay, the High-Speed Rail Authority, something? Yeah, okay, so. Yeah, and then the members have chosen to pick the hardest to pronounce one for me to try to read. So this is the perfluoral alkyl and perfluoral alkyl substances working group. That's on several members' lists, so I think we can add that one. And beyond that, I don't have any more that are on more than one list that I'm aware of yet. It's because I haven't had a chance to review Assemblyman O'Neill's full list. So,
And that's fine. So we can have further discussion, do it all at once, or we can take these four, and then if there's comments from Senator Lang, Vice Chair Marzola, or Senator Hansen on ones they'd like to see, we can put them on the list for discussion. Like I say, we're not going to finalize everything we're going to look at today, but we do want to try to get 8. So at this time, the ones that I have that were on at least 2 lists was the 4-H, I forget the full name, the high-speed rail. I'm not going to try to say the chemical substances working group. I'll just go with that. And then the court reporters board. So if we want to make a motion to at least add those 4 to the list, and then we can continue with the discussion. So if I can have a motion, that would be great.
So moved.
I second.
Thank you. So you guys just heard the 4 that we listed. Is there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, seeing no opposed, motion carries unanimously, so we'll add those 4. So Senator Lang, Vice Chair Marzola, or Senator Hansen, do you have any other favorites that you'd like to put into play? If not, we'll go with the other 8 or so that I listed.
I do not, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 additional ones. I had the Graduate Medical Education Committee that I thought we should look at as well, and the Technological Crime Advisory Board, as well as the Advisory Committee on Rights of Survivors of Sexual Assault. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Lang?
Chair?
Yes.
Yes. I, excuse me, my allergies are bothering me today. I thought it would be important for us to, as it was a big issue in the legislature with sidewalk vending, for us to just look at that. They've met a couple times to see how it's going, to see if there are any revisions that we might want to make in the upcoming legislation.
Okay, I think.
So it's a task force of safe sidewalk vending.
Yes, and I agree with that. Even though it's brand new, it wasn't on my list because I was looking for older ones or the ones that hadn't been reviewed. And they've only been in existence. But I know there were some issues with or questions over the ordinance and the things that they passed in Reno, which some people have said too restrictive, et cetera. So I think it might be useful to take a look at that as well. Do you got that one? Yeah. Okay. So I think everyone has gone through, so let's go ahead and add the one on the sidewalk bending for sure in this motion. I think the Graduate Medical Advisory Board was on 2 lists, 3 lists.
Survivors of sexual assault.
Okay. The survival of sexual assault as well. And then the, let's just go with those 4. That's 4. 1 second. Okay, so let's take a bite at those 4, and then we'll look at some of the others that were on other people's lists if we can review some more for next time. So you had a question, Assemblyman O'Neill?
I think you may have answered it. I had some others that I'd like to look at, but these were 4, then you say we can continue on, because I wanted to bring up the taxi cab and several of the committees that, haven't met at all or haven't met for years. So do you want them all included now, all of them? Or is this just the starting list? I guess that's what I need clarification on, Chair. Please.
And thank you. So what I was going to do now is take up these other 4 that we had just talked about that were suggested by the members. That will get us to 8 for today. Then we can continue discussion on potential others and various things. I know I had a longer list that I had put in, and I know you have a longer list, so we'll try to narrow that down, but I was going to give us a little bit more time to refine the list and get it down to a manageable number. And we would continue and finalize the ones that we want on review, not finalize, refine and add more in the next meeting. But I think we can add or increase whoever we want to review all throughout up until our time limit. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. The only thing I would ask, Chair, if it's not part of the original discussion or motion, is I forwarded my 2-page list to Pat Guinan. I apologize. If he could forward it out to the other members too to look at, because there are some overlaps. And I had the advisory council and graduate medical and that substance working group. So some of them are already on there, but it would be a good starting point just to let the rest of the committee have a view of my suggestions, and then including the taxi cab authority, since that really was not, they were resolved in the last session.
And real quick before we hand it off to Mr. Guinan, I think the taxi cab authority is something that we could come back and review from the last interim that I believe I asked to have that on the agenda. If we want to hear from them again or bring them in again, we can make that determination at a later date. But I do think we want to, when we're reviewing what was happened last session, what was undone, didn't pass, or whatever the resolution was, I think it was ACR 3 that didn't pass. I think we can revisit that on that agenda item. Mr. Guinan.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge the Assemblyman's request, and I will absolutely forward that list to the rest of the members. I was also going to suggest that what I could do after our meeting today is I will compile a list of the boards that we have verified for next meeting, and then I will compile a list of everybody's suggestions that were made today that we haven't yet verified. So you'll get all of those together, and then perhaps that'll help us generate a list for the remainder of the bodies that we want to look at at the February meeting. We can confirm at that point. So I guess let me just make sure that I just want to make sure I've got the 4 right. One is the Graduate Medical Board. The next is the Rights of Survivors of Sexual Assault. The next is the Technological Crime Board, and the 4th is the Sidewalk Vending Board. And those are the 4 that I have on my list to approve today.
Sorry, I was just writing some notes down. So on those 4, if I can get a motion to add to our list for next meeting, the Graduate Medical Board, the Survivors Sexual Assault, the Technical Crime Advisory, and the Sidewalk Vending. If I can get that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything on the questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes unanimously, and I believe that gets us our 8. So at this time, if we want to add some more today, if there's consensus, or we can forward everybody the list, Assemblyman O'Neill's list. I know there were at least 6 others on my list. And then everyone can take a look at that, and we can follow up and hopefully refine this discussion next time once everybody's had a chance to see where everybody's at. And if there's really a favorite that you like, please reach out, and we'll do what we can to put it on there, as I did with the court reporter board. So with that, Mr. Guinan, if you want to kind of go over the list just verbally real quick, and this will be sent out electronically to everybody on the committee.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so the list I have is the Court Reporters Board, the High Speed Rail Board, the Perfluoroalkyl Board, the 4-H Board, the Graduate Medical Board, the Rights of Survivors of Sexual Assault, Technological Crime Board, and the Sidewalk Vending. Those are the 8 that I have listed for today. And then I will combine the lists of suggestions that we haven't yet approved with that approved list and Assemblyman O'Neill's list so that the members can review it prior to the next meeting to go forward from there.
Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Chair. Patrick, being new on the board, have there been an attempt by staff to kind of like, okay, out of all these boards, commissions, to see which ones have some level of overlap or redundancy? You know, where the staff base goes through and say, look, you have 5 committees on education, for example. 3 of them potentially could be blended. You know, what I'm looking for is, have we ever considered, or has the board previously considered a way to consolidate some of these? So instead of having 285, you had some that would blend because essentially they often cover the same types of functions?
Pat Guinan for the record, Senator Hansen. I am not aware that that's ever been done specifically by staff. Staff can certainly do that, although I don't know that I would feel comfortable as staff making a recommendation toward consolidation. We can certainly show you what's out there and then ask those folks to come before you.
Well, it's just a thought I had, so I don't know. If you guys haven't done it, obviously the board's been doing this for a while. I'm just kind of curious as to whether or not that kind of an idea has been discussed previously.
I believe that the chair has some thoughts on consolidation and efficiency too, and by all means, as staff to the committee, we're here for all of you, and you let us know what you'd like us to do, and we'd be happy to do that. If the list that we've compiled, the master list is broken up by entity, so you can sort of see who's in the same ballpark with each other and go from there. But yeah, we'll follow the committee's direction on that.
Well, I'm new, so I'm going to follow what the chair recommends, and I'll talk to him later and see what his thoughts are on that.
You know how to find me. So in addition to that, and I'll try to discuss or talk a little bit about that. Later in the agenda, we do have, there's a form. I don't know if you've looked at the forms lately. I know some people that have served on this before have seen it. The form and the questionnaire is quite extensive. And it's, like I said, going to be a lot of reading on our part, a little research to try to do that, make sure we're prepared for when these agencies come in and talk to us. And that's one question I think we want to try to add to the form is, do you think that there are other agencies or you're doing duplicative work with somebody else, or somebody else is doing the same work you're doing? We want to ask them that question to try to have that information to see if then we, as legislators, can create some efficiencies and reduce any of that overlap and potentially save the state some money. In addition to that, members, for the next meeting that we have, we need to look at the boards that we have to review. Where am I here? To determine whether the restrictions based on criminal history of an applicant for occupation or professional licenses are appropriate. I know that's a much shorter list of potential boards. I think the committee took 2 last time. So we want to get some recommendations from everybody, or we'll pick 2 and move forward. But be thinking of that when we have our discussion on finishing up our list on who we're going to review on the next meeting. Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Also, could we have Mr. Guinan possibly report on, I know a lot of these committees were supposed to make reports to us annually, and I think several of them have failed to do so, not only once, but twice, maybe thrice. We haven't heard from them, which could give us some direction on the activity and value of that committee. If we could get that, possibly you'd ask if that list would be available or could be done.
Mr. Guinan is nodding his head yes.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to chime in there that we do keep track of all the boards and commissions that are required to report to this subcommittee, and we will provide you that information. I'm in the process of compiling that list, and typically what we would do is bring to your attention what the latest report is, who hasn't reported under their statutory requirements. So we'll do that through the course of the interim. Absolutely.
Very good. So thank you, committee, on that. So I think we have 8 that will give staff. They'll send out the questionnaires. Some people may take some time. So we're hoping to have at least 4 at the minimum, maybe as many as 6 for our next meeting for review. So like I say, it'll be quite a bit of work, but if people can get the answers back to us, and some of them may be relatively easy to do because they haven't met in some time, or maybe they're defunct and nobody's there to answer. So those will be, I think, the easy ones. And then, so with that, if there's nothing further, I think we know what our game plan is for the next meeting and finishing up our list. Let's move on to agenda item number 7, which is discussing a possible revision to the form to be submitted to the Sunset Subcommittee by boards, commissions, and similar entities. Mr. Guinan.
Thanks, Chair. Patrick Garner for the record. This last item is concerning the 3 different forms that we sent out to the various bodies that the committee, or the subcommittee, chooses to review. And they're all up as exhibits in your packet if you want to take a look at them. The first form goes out to all boards that get reviewed. The second board goes out, the second form goes out to the occupational and licensing boards that this body may choose to review. And the third form goes to the entities that deal with criminal history requirements. So as the chair mentioned, these forms are fairly detailed, and the content of them and the questions they ask are largely dictated by statute. But the subcommittee may, at its discretion, add questions that it feels are relevant. I know the chair has just mentioned that he would like to add a question about whether or not these boards feel like their work is being duplicated elsewhere by other entities, so we can add that question to the list if the committee so chooses, and any other questions that the members want to talk about today.
Thank you, Mr. Guinan. And when I met with staff as we were preparing for all of these things, a couple of items that I thought we should add to the form, he said they're already on there. I says, do they have regulations? When was the last time they updated? Those questions are on the form already. But going back to the SAGE Commission and the genesis of some of this stuff, which was to create efficiencies in government, and which is a good goal, regardless of party or any of that kind of stuff. So I felt it was important that we add a question at least to say, do you feel, or do you know, because these boards and agencies deal with this stuff more often than we do, I think it would be useful to ask them, do you think that the services they're providing or the information they're collecting or some of the procedures they're doing is also done by another agency? And is that the way it needs to be, or can we potentially fix that? And then paired with that, or maybe a second question is, provide us any recommendations on changes that would increase your efficiency or potentially reduce the cost to the state. And again, not trying to have any reduction in state employees, but if there's efficiencies that can be gained through other measures, I think we want to hear from the agencies on what their point of view is. And then as we can decide as a body when we go forward, make recommendations on how to implement any savings that might be available. So if anybody has any questions or comments regarding that before we take a motion to potentially add those questions to the form, I'd be happy to hear you from you. Seeing none, if someone wants to make a motion, you got that, Patrick?
So moved.
Clear enough?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to add a couple of questions to the main form. I think it's the first one that goes out to everybody, essentially asking, do you think any of your services are duplicated by another state agency, or they're duplicating what you're doing? And do you have any recommendations on cost reduction efforts within your agency? Do we have a motion and a second? Anything on the questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Being none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I think that brings us to agenda item 8, unless anybody has any questions. All right, agenda item 8 is public comment. As a reminder, we'll ask the public comments to be kept to 2 minutes so that everyone interested in speaking can be accommodated. In addition to public comment may be provided in 4 different ways, all of which are listed in the agenda. So we have the phone, in person, you can submit in writing through the internet, et cetera. Anyway, do we have anybody in Clark County that's there, wants to speak in public comment? Seeing none. Do we have any interested persons in Carson City? Seeing none. Broadcast, we'll go to the phones if there's anybody on the lines that wishes to provide public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. So with that, is there any member comments before we move to agenda item 9, which is adjournment? Seeing none, that concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, beginning at 9 a.m. With that, we will adjourn today's meeting, and I'll bang my knuckle on the desk. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.